Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to Unlearn with Bianca. If you're new here, then welcome. On this podcast, we explore all things self-healing, health, personal growth, the mind-body connection, relationships, and more. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is good. I know it's been a few weeks since I last put out my episode, so thank you for being patient with me. I have been traveling. In fact, I still am traveling. I'm currently doing this episode from London. But at the end of June, I set off. I left New Zealand and went to Thailand and Vietnam for 2 weeks, catching up with, you could call her my Thai sister. We had homestay students growing up. So I'm really lucky to know lots of different people from lots of different cultures and lots of places. And I had such a good time. I really made a commitment to myself, especially for like most of the trip, to disengage from work and to really enjoy and be in the moment as much as possible, which I have tried to do and made that commitment in the past. But being a business owner and really knowing that when you work, that's when the work and the money comes in, it can be a lot more challenging than you think. And sometimes I find myself practically stepping back from work, but still mentally and emotionally tapped into work stuff or thinking about what I need to do. So I really made an effort to not do that this time. Hence, I hadn't recorded podcast and I had the best time. And now I am in London. I had a few travel disruptions on the way as I was meant to be flying through Middle East, but I made it to London and I'm here for another 5 weeks. So really exciting. I'm really loving being in a different space, and I've said this on other podcasts, but I like new environments. I like traveling. I really feel lit up when I'm in new spaces. So I'm very lucky. I feel very lucky to be able to do this and make the most of the flexibility that I have with my work as well. So I've been thinking about what I wanted to speak on in this week's episode, and I've decided that I want to speak on something that's really relevant in my life at the moment and some of the choices I'm making and really stepping into my own expansion. And I know that this concept, this idea will also be really relevant in so many of your lives, especially if you're navigating changes and really doing the scary things. So, one of the biggest secrets or most underrated things to nervous system regulation is your relationship with letting go. And I sometimes like to call it surrendering, but I know for some people that word won't resonate so much. Your relationship with letting go and the practice of surrendering and letting go, it, I would say, is a muscle that you can build. And let me tell you, as a previous self-proclaimed control freak, there is so much freedom on the other side of grasping for control. When you learn to let go and you learn to surrender, you have more experiences in life, you have greater creativity, greater happiness, and you have the clarity to really take steps forward. So I used to think that being in the driver's seat was like the safest place to be. If I worked harder, if I planned better, if I just stayed one step ahead, then I would feel calm. But I realized over time that it was really getting me into this like perpetual loop cycle of overanalysis and rigidity. And it was blocking me from really flowing with life. And it felt like I was getting stuck consistently. And I still get into that sometimes. But what I know now is that when my life's not flowing, when things aren't happening, it's usually because I need to look at what I need to let go of to make room for something else to come through. And I was really thinking about my own relationship with letting go and surrendering and how I really started to like work this muscle. For me, it was a combination of life not going to plan as I had planned it in my head. You know how we always think that things should go a certain way and we have this idea about how life should go. Well, I think for me in the last decade, there's definitely been a lot of things that haven't gone as I planned it in my head. So we get forced to really look at our relationship with letting go. And also it happens in these small micro moments when you have this tendency to grip on and to get into your head and to try and control. And I really realize where they start popping up in my day so I can just have this awareness in my choices throughout the day to day. And like anything, if we practice these things over time, then these neural pathways, these brain pathways get stronger, and the choices become easier and more automated. So, as I mentioned before, our relationship with letting go is really underrated when it comes to a regulated nervous system. So, just to recap as to like what a regulated nervous system is, it's when we have the capacity in our nervous system to move in and out of a parasympathetic and a sympathetic state. So we want to be spending most of our time in that rest and digest state. Sometimes we will go into a stress response, and that's totally normal and actually really enhancing in certain situations. But we don't want to spend a lot of time stuck in the stress response, because that's where our inflammation goes up, our immune gets put on the back burner. We have fogginess and a whole lot of other things that really impact our health. So when we're in this rest and digest parasympathetic state, for the most part, everything in life becomes easier. Our health improves. This is where we heal. This is where we have clarity to make good decisions. This is where we have creativity. And this is really where we thrive. If you are constantly gripping, you're trying to fix, you're holding, and that means like holding on to things mentally and physically in your body, and you're really trying to control and make things perfect, your nervous system stays on guard because it's prepared for any potential threat. But when you build your relationship with letting go and you start trusting in life, you start to send the signal to your nervous system that it's okay to soften and that it's safe to be in the present moment. Now, I want to make it really clear that letting go, this idea of letting go, it's not about giving up. It's not about being passive or detached and just expecting everything to happen. It's about being discerning with where your energy is placed, because there's actually very little that we have control over besides our own thoughts and our reactions. And especially in today's day and age, I feel like there's so much uncertainty that we really need to work that muscle and get used to living with these uncertainties, because I don't think they're going anywhere. It's really a practice of knowing where to put our energy and our focus. I'm sure there's some people listening that are probably thinking like, why am I like this? Why am I a control freak? Why do I grip on so tightly? And I just want to reassure you that just like everything else I speak on, this feeling of needing to be in control and planning ahead, it is a protective mechanism. So if you find yourself forcing things, overthinking, your mind does this as an attempt to resolve what might happen, because it thinks that if I can control the situation, if I can think my way out of the situation, it's going to prevent this thing from actually happening. And you almost have this safety from thinking it will be less bad because you've anticipated it. So that's the nature of anxiety, and it's also the nature of control. If you've had unresolved trauma from the past, or you've been modeled by a parent that everything must be a certain way and it's better to be rigid and controlled, then yeah, maybe some of that will also come into it as well, as to why you stay on alert and why it's really hard to let go of things. And I know for me personally that if there's been scenarios where I've felt out of control before, my natural response to that situation, my natural instinct is wanting to protect myself and control things in the future from then onwards. So that could be like situations, it could be how people perceive you, and all of these different things that we do. That is why, if you've heard of Mel Robbins, she's a podcaster, she has this theory called Let Them. And the let them theory has gone really viral because it's a really simple way of thinking about like where our energy goes and releasing and letting go of all the things that we can't control. So for the rest of the episode, I'm just going to pose some reflective questions that will really help you think about your own relationship with letting go and what areas could do with a little bit of work. And I really want you to trust that whatever pops into your mind when I'm reading these is the thing that needs some attention, okay? So the first one is, where can you let go of forcing yourself to feel a certain way and accept how you feel in this moment? Emotions are powerful messages, and by resisting them, we cause more tension. So the question to ask yourself, where am I forcing a feeling instead of accepting what's true right now? Because so often we shame ourselves for not feeling how we think we should feel. So a classic example is when we do feel sadness and we try and mask over it with toxic positivity or say that we're fine when we're not. When we try and motivate ourselves out of exhaustion, but really what we need is rest and just to have a moment. That overriding our feeling initially, that is what can cause dysregulation. So if we think about this in terms of like building that letting go muscle and that surrender muscle, what if letting go looked like accepting how you feel in this moment without needing to change it straight away, without needing to mask over it, without needing to push through, just accepting where you're at in that moment? I used to be really, really good at just pushing through and putting on a brave face. And that just creates more dysregulation in the nervous system because we're going against how we actually feel. So if I'm having, a difficult moment or difficult day now, my internal dialogue will be something like, I'm feeling flat right now. Notice I say right now because I'm not going to say I'm feeling flat today. I'm just making it very temporary. I'm feeling flat right now, and that's okay. So I validate my own feelings. I say how I feel, and it's from that place that I can move into a new state. It's only from that place that I have new options. So by accepting an emotion instead of forcing it, you're giving your nervous system a message that it's safe to feel. And letting go of this idea that we always have to, that we should show up in a certain way. That is such a relief for your mind and body, and it helps you let go of so much pressure. Okay. Number 2, this one's my favorite one. Where can you let go of timelines, and where can you let go of the how is this going to happen? So when we release the attachment to the logistics and the how, we free up a lot of physical space in our body, but also mental space as well. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a plan. I think we all love clarity. And when we're healing and trying to create change, we often cling to timelines. So we say things like, how will it happen? When is it going to happen? How am I going to exactly get there? Like, we need the breakdown. But all of these questions, all of these things create a sense of urgency and a sense of push, and that can activate that stress response even more. So when we learn to practice letting go of the how, this is when you create freedom. Holding on too tightly to logistics and timing can activate that urgency, and ironically, that pulls you further away from what you want because you get caught up in that fear loop of things not happening on your own timeline. So I'll give you some examples. So let's say that you're really desperate to hear back from someone at work with an opportunity or get clients by a certain date. If you are in this energy of like, when is it going to happen? I must hear back from them. You're going to be checking your inbox constantly to see if they've replied. You're going to be obsessing over metrics. And every time you go into your inbox and you haven't had a response, it's going to reaffirm the fact that this person hasn't replied to you. And it shifts your energy into a state of fear and frustration. So what I've really learned, and as I'm learning and starting to manifest some more things that I want, it's about showing up and taking the steps forward. This is the key to any kind of manifestation, but allowing spaciousness and really building that trust that things are going to happen eventually. So when I'm doing anything for work, my job is to keep showing up aligned, keep doing what feels right and trusting my instincts, and timing will take care of itself. And it's the same with anything we do in life. If we're obsessed about the timing and the how, it just creates and drives that fear and stops us from getting the actual thing we want, because we go out into the world fearful. We see life through a different lens. We get frustrated. We miss opportunities. So it's all about aligned action and trust. And I see this so much as well when it comes to people healing from chronic symptoms. If you're frustrated that your body hasn't healed as fast as you'd hoped, and you have thoughts like, it should be gone by now, why is it taking so long? You're inadvertently slowing down the healing process because you're putting more urgency and pressure on yourself, which drives that stress response. And I know it can be frustrating when you're dealing with these health issues, but the best thing you can do is take steps forward, one step forward at a time. Know that progress can be, and healing can be non-linear, meaning it can be a bit up and down, but not forcing certain timelines is just going to help you heal faster. I know it seems a bit funny because you think by doing more, by pushing harder, it's actually going to heal you faster, but that's actually incorrect because we can't heal in the same energy that we got stuck in. Right? So if you're so used to forcing things externally in life, if you're so used to pushing, if you're so used to striving and grasping, your body's not going to heal when you're bringing that energy into healing. It's going to be more about letting go. It's going to be more about trusting. It's going to be more about learning to be present and accept what is day to day. That is where our body sits in that safety zone, and that is where our body starts to heal from. So that is a little message that will resonate hopefully with people that are still stuck with some chronic symptoms. And one more example is like finding love. It's really funny. I'm currently single, and I think a lot of people probably like, what are you doing? Shouldn't you be more stressed about being, finding someone, being in a relationship? But I've really changed the way that I even relate to this area as well in terms of letting go and surrendering. So my mindset on this is staying open, releasing urgency. If you're looking for love, focus on cultivating the life you love and actually loving your own life, and then trusting that that the relationship will align when the energy is right, not when the calendar says so. Okay, so many people around me I find like get really stressed out about forcing certain outcomes, certain timelines, like really driving it. And I do understand, like, in one respect, as a female in her 30s, I get all of that as well. But when you really know that what is for you will never miss you, and really to shift that energy internally and really focus on really like being the best version of you possible, that is where things start to shift. That is the surrendering to a greater plan, basically. And it's another area in which we can really build our relationship with letting go. In terms of friendships as well, I think a lot of us tend to cling on, we've all done it before, cling on to things that perhaps no longer resonate or are no longer aligned, just because it's the safe thing to do and because you know those people. Clinging on and not letting go, it keeps us stuck, and it doesn't create any space for anything new to come in as well. So the question to ask yourself is really, what would it feel like to trust the unfolding? Where and in what areas of my life can I focus on alignment and let timing take care of itself? Even when I say those things out loud, I just feel my body soften. It's like, okay, all I need to do is focus on what feels true to me, focus on following my intuition, taking steps forward, and release my grip on timelines and timing and the how. Just notice how quickly and how much more that can get you out of your head and back into your body in the present moment. Number 3, the next question is, where can you let go of what could have or should have been, in quotation marks, and make room for what is? This is really about trusting the detours in life will make so much more sense in the future, because I think we can spend a lot of time mentally in the past rehashing situations, really getting into self-blame, frustration about how a situation turned out as if we had control over it, and not actually putting our focus in the future to trust that it will all make sense at some point. And I think this point has a lot to do with forgiveness. It's forgiving ourselves for not knowing what we knew forgiving ourselves for only knowing what we knew at the time. And also the same with others, knowing that others only have the tools and the resources that they have and that they're working with, and they can only deal with a situation with what they know. The faster we accept what is, the more spaciousness and freedom we can create. I'm going to say that again. The faster we can accept what is, the more spaciousness and freedom we open up and create. Accept what is happening in your life as a part of your journey. You don't know how things are going to turn out in the future. You might look back and realize that shitty time in my life where I was mulling over, I was putting all my mental energy into that thing, that ended up detouring me into the best outcome possible. And I know that it can be really challenging to accept some situations. You got to go through the why. Why is this happening? You've got to go through, different processes, grief, sadness, anger, all of that. But when you're on the other side of it and you can really see things for what they are, it's just going to create more spaciousness. More choices will open up. Number 4, where can you let go of the constant need for perfection? Letting go of needing things to be perfect frees you up from this consistent hypervigilance, and it actually brings you into a state where you can access more creativity and growth. Hyperperfection is a protective part, and I've talked on this before. It's usually a part that gets formed when we're younger. We're trying to get love and validation, and we find that to do that, we think we need to be doing things perfectly. It can also be a part that tries to protect you from shame or failure or criticism. So when you shift and build your relationship with showing up despite things being perfect and taking action despite things being perfect, you are regulating your nervous system and building your capacity to do hard things in the process. And this one goes hand in hand, and I would say is very closely related to the next point, which is where can you let go of the need to be understood? One of the hardest things to let go of is needing others to get it, to validate our journey, to validate our decisions, to validate our pain. But when your choices and your state depend on someone else's understanding, you give so much of your power away. So letting go here in this context is really about anchoring into that self-trust that you don't need anyone's validation for you to make your own decisions. And it's cultivating and building and trusting that your path is yours to walk, even if others can't see the full picture. This one is a real big one, and I assume it's because we are relational beings, right? We need to be in relationships and find that connection with others. But so much of our controlling tendencies can be around like how other people perceive us, or if people, like I said, are understanding us. So if you can work on your relationship with letting go of other people's opinions and really shift that focus back on yourself, just in the micro moments, even if it's like what you choose to eat, even if it's how you dress, even if it's a small decision you make, you are practicing and building that letting go muscle. Because the most liberating thing is when we can be ourselves and trust that the people around us, if they're meant to be in our life, they will stay in our life. And same goes for when we have that inkling to manage other people's behavior, to control other people's behavior. I have found so much freedom in just doing my best to accept people as they are and just working with that information and deciding from that place, how do I want to respond? Do I want this person in my life? Rather than like unconsciously trying to get frustrated at other people's behavior. Okay. That's where I've worked on letting go for sure. Okay, guys. So I've touched on a few reflective questions. I hope you found them really beneficial just to see where you're at with your relationship and letting go and what you can work on. And remember that the nervous system often craves predictability. So one thing I want to say is that mechanism of control, it does make sense. But there are so many surprises and so many positive things that can happen when we live in the unknown, when we take steps forward without knowing the how, when we let go. And it's really trusting in the process, knowing that you don't need to know the outcome intellectually before you take the next step. When you show up with that in the back of your mind, and you move from this place of fear of the unknown to just curiosity in the unknown, you put yourself in this state where you're able to receive, and you put yourself in this state where your nervous system is regulated, you can access your intuition more and more. And this is where life starts to happen, where synchronicities start to happen, where you can flow because you're not getting caught up in the fear and the control. And I know this is a practice. I know it takes a lot of consistency, but keep celebrating yourself when you let things unfold and keep asking yourself, what else is possible? What else is possible? I think that's something that always gets us into that state of curiosity. I hope you guys got a lot out of this episode. And as always, please message me, please contact me if there's any specific topics or things that you would like me to talk on here. Please make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast, that you rate this podcast if you're enjoying it, share it with family and friends that think would benefit from it as well. I look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Have a stunning week ahead, and I'll see you then.